Well, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. I'm so delighted to be with you today. My name is Elise Mentor Robinson, and I serve as Director of Marketing for Applied Geographic Solutions. Having grown up in this industry, I love maps and the stories that they tell. A picture is worth 1,000 words, but a map could be worth 1,000 data points. Today, we're going to talk about improving your marketing content using Maptitude Maps. I would love for this to be a discussion. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat and I'll try to monitor that and see if there's any questions. A little bit about AGS. So we were founded in 1996. We are a demographic and geographic database provider. So we've got more than 40,000 variables available for the US and Canada. Everything from your basic demographics, estimates and projections, to business data, healthcare data, the risk that your location could be in a hurricane or a wildfire. We do segmentation data through Panorama. Crime risk is a big one that we do, which would tell you the relative risk of crime plus specific crime occurrences in your area. So AGS loves Maptitude. I posted this screenshot. It's kind of funny. In 2021, I actually wrote an entire blog post on our blog about how much we love Maptitude. We use Maptitude for all of the maps that I'm going to show you today and every map basically that we publish. It's a cost-effective solution. It's easy to use and it creates great maps. I kind of laugh. I am not a trained geographer. I did not really have a background of creating maps in any type of like GIS application before I started this job. Before I worked at AGS, I did 8 years in direct mail and online fundraising. So a very different kind of marketing. And so when I swapped over, I have a minor in geography from college, but I never created GIS maps myself. And even I can plug in some basic data and make an easy map. It is such a wonderful platform. And I'm going to show you some of the maps that we do. Now, this is a good representation of our company and where we all fit in, right? So if you can see, there's a picture of all of the Legos. If you were a Lego kid, I was too. So this speaks to me. Our data team will take all of the data, sort it, and arrange it. And then I have to come in and figure out, how am I telling the story of our data? How am I getting across what we need to say about it? So presented visually, I would say that that is the map, and then explain with the story is map and content or copy or context, however you're phrasing that. So I just thought this was a really fun way to look at how it all kind of breaks down. So our kind of philosophy is maps on everything. So if I can put a map on something, I will. Gary, our president and founder, talks a lot and says we are a geography company first. Our staff, especially the data team, are trained in geography. And so if we can put a map on something, we will. I love maps. I love the visual look of them. It's easy to create content around them. And of course, it's easy for us to tell the stories of our data with them. So I'm going to walk you through some samples of some things that we've done. And then at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about the analytics behind it. So like I said, I will put a map on anything. So the example on your left, we updated our Canada data. This is just like such a simple graphic that you see the map, you know it's Montreal, and just I put a little bit of a fade on it, put that maple leaf on there, banner at the bottom, easy to do. This definitely tells a story. You know, you obviously know it's Montreal, and it was kind of neat. I actually think that map is one that we did of crime risk from Canada. On the right was just a really simple Christmas graphic, holiday graphic that I did for social. So you can see all of the little maps make up the ornaments. I really, really loved this one. I wish I could use it every year, but now that I've already used it once, I feel like I've kind of reached my peak. I need to come up with something different. But I just love this one. I thought it was really, really fun. And you can see there's domestic maps on there, but there's also international maps. So we got that Buenos Aires map, just a neat combination of things. And like I said, made in Maptitude. Okay, so on the left, this was another graphic that we did. I do believe that this was included in an email marketing campaign, but we also did it on social. And when I say social, for us, that's really LinkedIn. That's where we find the most engagement, where we find our followers are. So LinkedIn is great for that. And you can see there's a map on the back. There are maps on our business cards. You can see Oscar's card up here as an example, where you can see that map in the background. So even if I can just add it, I think so much of the time we try to add, some type of basic background to something. And if I can add a map and take the transparency down, I think that, it plays into our branding. I use this specific map a lot. Because it's kind of the same colors as our logo and as our branding. So I think that it plays nicely. Okay, so here is a graphic I made about the geographic hierarchy that we can deliver data into. And so this is an easy one where I could have just put the words. I didn't have to include a map of the area. And I think including the little dot maps makes such a big difference, just so that people can understand what it is exactly that we're talking about. Now, it does get slightly complicated because I don't have all of the space in the world, so it is hard to see exactly where those maps are. But obviously, the United States is the United States. The state is very obvious, so you can kind of see those. This was a fun one to do, but also slightly annoying, trying to get all the sizing right. I spent a while on that one. Okay, so here are some just different like one-page marketing sheets that we made for some of our resellers to use to kind of explain to their clients a little bit more about what our databases are. So kind of like a one page on healthcare demand. As you can see, we did some mapping on the risks of COVID-19, depending on the different inherent risk factors for people, respiratory, circulatory diseases, things like that we know are present amongst the population. And then obviously assuming that those folks, if they were to get COVID, would be more likely to be hospitalized. So that was a neat map. Excuse me. On the other side, you can see a tourism map for summer residents to permanent residents. So those folks that have maybe a secondary home somewhere and what we would affectionately call snowbirds, right? They're escaping winter and maybe going to Florida or Arizona or something like that for the winter. And tourism is a great one because a lot of industries would like to know, hey, what is the overnight population of tourists on any given day, so that they know better to stock food at the grocery store or clothes at a retail shop, things like that. This was a white paper that we did. Again, that geography focus, this was a white paper we did about why you should be using the new 2020 geography. Of course, there will now be an updated already 2022 geography because Connecticut changed their county boundaries. So this was a white paper that we did, and you can see there's some Maptitude maps that we used to show some different block groups in the Houston area. If you're on the old geography, those look radically different. Here is an example of our blog. We did a blog about data for multifamily housing site selection not that long ago. And you can see that we did a map of the Los Angeles area showing the Metro Rail system. So you could see where multifamily housing might be in demand for those that would use public transit. So just an example on our blog. Here is an example of an email that we have sent out. So every week we come out with a newsletter. We call it Profile. and we highlight different databases that we have, or tying in current events to data on what we do. And so here is an example of that, some Crime Risk Canada stuff, and you can see that Mapstune map on the bottom. Over on LinkedIn is where we do a bulk of our sharing. So you can see, here's a snapshot of 2 posts. The one on the left was a database overview about behaviors and attitudes, which is one of our best-selling databases. And on the right, you can see a little graphic I created about the webinar that you're watching right now. So you can kind of see on the bottom what our engagement looks like on that. So it's quite obvious that the map graphic ends up with more engagement, more likes than the webinar on the right. I can also say I don't have that number exactly in front of me, but the map graphic on the left was also had higher impressions. It had just over 500 impressions, if I remember correctly, and the one on the right only ended up having about 300 impressions. So it's very interesting what LinkedIn seems to value in their algorithms, right? Because if they think that something is valuable content, they're far more likely to share it, and then it will pop up on more folks' feeds. And it always seems as if our map content does better. And I can show you a little bit about that analytics here. So this is from January 1, 2023 to April 30th, so yesterday. I pulled this fresh. So you can see in that time, the posts that I shared with maps and without maps, and it's about dead even. There was 1 post more with a map than without in that few months time span. So the posts with a map, and this is the engagement rates, are getting higher engagements across the board. So I also did without the top 3 and then without the top 3 and the bottom 3. So you could kind of see, depending on how you like to see data, sometimes I like to pull out those outliers that really, really skew something. Like I know in the No Map, there was a post about ICSC in Vegas and our team going and about scheduling a meeting with them. And so those posts about like a conference or something seem to get really high engagement. So if I take ones like that out, which I think had an 11% engagement rate, if I take that out, how does that balance out? And you can see down here, my total average engagement was 5.13%, so 5.13%. So not bad for our metrics and our what we're aiming for. Of course, everybody would always like to do better, but I will happily take 5%. And you can see that obviously that map total, and even without the top and the bottom 3, are still above that 5.13%. And again, just for those of you that really want to know the numbers, our total impressions in that time was just over 23,000. So as you can see, having the map really brings valuable content to readers. Similarly, while I don't have the exact numbers up, our emails, there are times when I don't have a map for a blog post or an article, and I'll use a different graphic. The posts in which there is a map, and I can tell, I'll always do it on the call out on the link. I'll say, read the article and look at the maps. Those always get higher click-through rates as well than the ones without a map. So just some data for me that shows we get a huge return when we have these maps on our marketing pieces. Again, in case anybody is wondering, that our follower rates during this time is just over 2,000. I think we're at about 2,300 at this point. So thank you so much for coming today. Just a brief webinar. If you've got any questions, I'll hang on. You can drop them in the chat, or you can email me. My email is on the screen, and I'd love to continue this conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope this was interesting. I hope that you learned something. Like I said, we have been making all of our marketing maps with Mapstune for many years. and we love them, and it's been wonderful. So
I think there's one question right now, and it's
okay.
on if you are sharing this presentation.
I can share this presentation, sure. Yeah, if you email me at that email on the screen, I would be happy to send you a link to this. Absolutely.
Great. And there's another question on how people can get copies of your posts. And I believe they are up on the Applied Geographic Solutions LinkedIn.
Yes, yes. So if you look at our LinkedIn, you can see all of those posts. And then on our blog as well, if you go to appliedgeographic.com, then you can see, if you click over to the blog, you'll see our blog post and you can see more of those maps. I will say any of the graphics that I shared at the beginning, like the Christmas graphic and things like that, I make those on Canva. So I think that that's probably the easiest way. I have training in Illustrator and Photoshop, and I just think that Canva makes my life so much easier. It's so much faster. So I would highly recommend that. It's a free resource. So if you've ever thought about doing graphics and things like that, I love that as a resource. Well, if there is nothing else, like I said, my email is there. Happy to chat anytime, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your day.